It's time for another blistering report from the front lines of the cultural war for a constitutional America. And now, here's your host, Charles Benninghoff.
Our background image today is India's horrific smog layer. The image, which is a NASA satellite shot, shows the north of India literally covered in impenetrable smog. Smog covering millions of square miles of ocean around India, and even the Himalayas have become but a brown blur. While thinking about today's subject over the next few minutes, remember this: India is an even worse polluter than China. Everyone thinks China is the worst. Not true. It is India. Everyone in the United States, because of all the leftist propaganda, thinks the United States is a polluter. Not true. We are one of the cleanest nations on the face of the earth. Keep these facts in mind. Now, for today's plan of action. Congress is about to cut another big check to the United Nations climate liars, in spite of major headlines this month which prove once again beyond any shadow of a doubt that global warming is a complete hoax. Barack Obama signed up America for the Paris Accord 1 year ago, which is an international wealth distribution treaty involving almost every country on earth. If you want to talk about a massive waste of your money, courtesy of the Democrats and the Republican RINO leadership in Congress, that just can't say no to Obama. Well, the Paris Accord global warming ripoff is one of the best examples that exist. Today, I'll break the numbers down for you and let you know how you can fight back against the climate liars. We're not just going to rub their noses in the scientific truth, we're going directly after their funding sources, and hopefully, with your help, we're going to shut them down. Congress has agreed to our plan to pass a short-term stopgap budget. They're only going to fund the government at current levels through March, and then let the Donald Trump administration take over, which is exactly what we asked them to do in a campaign earlier this month. Obama doesn't get his last big spending spree with your tax dollars. Hallelujah. But if Congress funds everything at the current level, that means the UN's fraudulent climate fund will receive another $3 billion United States dollars. Your tax dollars that are going to go to this UN fund are specifically earmarked to kick off the Paris Accord. $3 billion sounds like chump change today, but the cost of this global warming treaty are expected to skyrocket to over $2 trillion per year in the next 15 years, with a bulk of that money coming directly from American taxpayers. $2 trillion. That's a lot of greenbacks. This is a line item in the budget, and Congress should strike through it and refuse to send the UN climate liars another dime of your money. Why do I call them climate liars? Well, that's what they are. These totalitarian global warming nuts, led by Fat Al Gore, scurrilous George Soros, and Imam Barack Obama, lie to the people on a daily basis. It's the old adage, if you see their lips moving, they're lying. Yet, if anyone points out real scientific evidence which proves climate change is a fraud, that person is labeled a climate skeptic or a climate change denier. So that's why I call their side a bunch of climate liars, because they're liars. If you don't think they're liars, check this out. Here's Al Gore testifying before Congress 2 years ago about the sea ice around Antarctica. Now listen close. Give him a chance to talk. You'll be very surprised.
A recent study in the journal Science has now confirmed that the entire West Antarctic ice sheet is warming. Scientists have told us that if it were to collapse and slide into the sea, we would experience global sea level rise of another 20 feet. Each meter of sea level increase leads to 100 million climate refugees.
Wow, that sounds really scary, doesn't it? We should send the United Nations a big fat check right away. Fat Al says if the sea level rises 20 feet, big parts of Florida will be underwater, and it would create about 600 million climate refugees, to paraphrase his position. But wait, stop, not so fast, Fat Al. Just look at the headlines from a few days ago. You might have seen this on the Drudge Report. Matt Drudge linked to an article in the Daily Telegraph newspaper titled, "Antarctic Sea Ice has not shrunk in 100 years." Well, that's a little different than Al's point of view, isn't it? But if you believe the climate liars, you probably think the polar ice caps are almost completely melted. They're not. Real scientists examined the logbooks of explorers a century ago and found the Antarctic ice is basically unchanged in the past century. Explorers named Robert Falcon Scott and Ernest Shackleton explored Antarctica, and they kept detailed records of their journeys. Let me read you a quote from that article. "New analysis suggests that conditions are now virtually identical to the early 1900s, indicating that sea ice declines are a part of a natural cycle and not the result of man-made global warming," and I close quote. Al Gore says that the ice is about to slide into the ocean, though, unless we write the United Nations climate liars another big check, which he's going to get a big part of. So what is the UN climate change agenda really about then? It's about sucking money out of American taxpayer wallets and redistributing it to socialist countries like Communist China and India and the UN itself. Why? Well, Fat Al makes money off of global warming scams. George Soros drives economies bankrupt so he can manipulate currencies, and Imam Obama wants to run the UN beginning in 2017, and as he has proven for 8 straight years, he needs a lot of money to do that. Plus, the pollution in China and India are absolutely horrible. Now get this, you have to wear a face mask to go out in many of the bigger cities there because the air is so dirty. You can't even see across the street. Communist China and India have 2 of the most repressive socialist governments on earth, and they could care less about clean air and clean drinking water. But they signed on to the Paris Accord because they see this as a real big moneymaker for them. China and India, by the way, don't have to start complying with the climate treaty for another 15 years. They're off scot-free 15 years while we're paying trillions of dollars. So the world's 2 biggest polluters get to go on polluting for 15 more years just because Fat Al Gore, scurrilous George Soros, and Imam Obama are all socialists. And guess what? So are China and India. In the meantime, they will collect money from the UN's fraudulent climate fund, your money, to implement treaties, which means another million UN workers swarming all around the United States and other free countries, telling us what we cannot do, even while giving China and India free rein to pollute, and then pollute some more. Communist China and India are labeled as developing economies in the Paris Treaty, so they'll be collecting money provided by the American taxpayers to implement clean air and water promises that they have no intention of keeping. So here we are spending trillions of dollars in China. They have trillions of dollars of our bonds, and yet they're a developing economy, so we got to pay them some more. Why? Because they're socialists, and this is a socialist scheme to redistribute our American wealth around the world to other socialists. In fact, Obama wants to redistribute America's wealth to socialist countries, and the Paris Accord climate liar treaty is the best way he could figure out to do that. He's got to have some money to play with when he works in the UN. Well, Congress is about to fund it. That's why we need your help today. Congress is in session and ironing out the stopgap budget. You need to tell them to cut those funds immediately. You can do that from our action page today. Go there and follow the instructions. It's all very simple. Bob Mallory will tell you how to get to our action page on the next screen. Remember, global warming is a hoax, and the UN shouldn't receive another dime from the United States to implement the Paris Accord. This is Charles Benninghoff signing off and wishing you freedom, fulfillment, and God's many blessings.
Tell Congress to defund the UN Global Warming Hoax Treaty this week in the stopgap budget deal. If you're on our action page on our website, use the form next to the video screen to select a program. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, click the icon appearing now to find a link to our action page, or check the video's description to find the link. Speak out today.